everyone, this is Super Robot, and this is my first ever stock YouTube video, and I have some really cool stocks that we're going to be taking a look at for this first video. And so let's hop right in with our first one, which is BGLC, Bionexus Gene Lab Corp. And this one has been making a lot of buzz recently because of this press release in which they have uplisted to the NASDAQ from OTC. And this was a big deal last week and the week before. The stock, if we look at it just from this news, and this chart is adjusted for reverse split prices, by the way, because every OTC essentially has to do a reverse split to get on the NASDAQ. It's not a big deal. It doesn't screw shareholders. It's just one of the things they have to do to get on the NASDAQ, right? So this is adjusted for post-RS prices, but you can see this stock was under $1 at one point, not too long ago, just in May, and then in June was hovering around this $3 to $4 mark, especially after the news hit after 6/20. So June 20th, people started speculating and people started piling in before the NASDAQ uplist, and then of course the S1 is filed, and you can see the stock, for those that were holding from May, produced over 1,000% returns just because of this NASDAQ uplist. So this is a huge deal, and people are going to be looking for a lot more OTC stocks now that have the potential to uplist to NASDAQ, and I'm going to be covering a few of them in this video. And at the end of the video, we're going to be taking a look at the stock that is next in line to uplist from NASDAQ or from OTC onto the NASDAQ. And I do want to preface before we continue with this video that this is not financial advice. This is simply my opinion on stocks that I'm sharing, which I do as a hobby, which I do as something I just enjoy doing, and I enjoy creating content. So do not take this as financial advice. I am a stock trader, just like everyone else who's probably watching this. I do some long-term investments, but not many. And bottom line is, you have to do your own analysis and do your own due diligence on every stock I mention and make your own decisions regarding entries and exits. But I am providing the ideas, and so we can see that BGLC, off of this press release, has done very, very well with their uplisting to NASDAQ. Basically everyone that was holding it while it was in OTC is still green, even though obviously the chart has fallen quite a bit, which tends to happen on highly volatile stocks like this. There's going to be huge fluctuations in price. So let's move on to my latest swing trade and possibly long-term investment here, because this is a new company I found. Well, the company itself is not new, but I have just discovered these guys this week. And when I was doing OTC research, I've seen them mentioned on Twitter many times before, especially from Nicholas Coriano, who's a great follow on Twitter if you go follow him. And he does some investor relations work for the company as well, and he's always been super communicative. But I have honestly ignored this company for far too long now, and we're going to take a look at why this was a mistake for me to ignore it, I think, and why I'm really excited about it now. So what do they do? Well, the company is 3DX Industries, stock ticker DDDX. And so this is a 3D metal printing company, and so they have the ability to 3D print a wide variety of products for specifically for industrial use, right? So let's take a look at what's been really exciting about this stock, because there's a lot of things going on here with DDDX. First, we're going to take a look at the share structure, and we can see from the share structure the market cap is less than 3 million, which is pretty ridiculous in my opinion, and we're going to see why I think that's a little ridiculous. Ridiculous as in far too low. Okay, so we can see outstanding shares is 100 million. Restricted represents over half of the outstanding shares. So it's safe to say insiders and other parties have locked up more than half of the outstanding shares, which leaves us with what we trade as traders and investors, which is the held at DTC. And the held at DTC is essentially the float that we're working with, and it's a 44 million float, as you can see, which is a very nice share structure, very attractive for both traders and investors. And because it's a tight float, as in it's small enough that the stock can move quickly, but it's not so small that it would be illiquid. Okay, so this is a great range. Anywhere between like 30 million to like 300 million is really an excellent range for a float on OTC. And this, ticks those boxes in that regard. So this is a stock that could move quite quickly because there's just not a lot of shares available on the market. Now let's take a look at what this company has actually been doing. So this is the first press release I want to talk about from DDDX. This came out July 12th of this year, so very recently, just a couple weeks ago. And this press release is crucial because it really shows how far this business is coming. And as you can see right there in the title, 3DX Industries completes Navy order and submits proposals to marine industry leaders. So they are a global manufacturing company specializing in 3D metal printing, which I've said before. And they're excited to announce that they've completed their manufacturing job for the U.S. Navy doing classified parts. So they're developing and 3D printing classified parts for the U.S. Navy, which is a pretty darn big deal for a penny stock. It's very rare for a penny stock to get in the door and get real contracts with the U.S. military or any large parties like this, right? So to be working with the U.S. Navy, I think, speaks volumes for this stock and really shows these guys are the real deal. These guys are not playing around. These guys are working with big people like the U.S. Navy, and if they're working with the Navy, they can probably get work with other branches of the U.S. military, such as the Marine Corps, the Army, etc. So we have to keep a close eye on this company and see if they're going to be announcing things like that as well outside of the U.S. Navy. Now, they've completed this order. Like I said, it says here they've successfully completed turnbuckles and similar parts manufactured for U.S. Navy vessels. Now, they can't talk about this too much, obviously, because they're classified parts. But again, huge deal for them to be able to get in the door with the U.S. Navy and do work for them. And so what's this going to lead to? Well, doing work for the U.S. Navy opens more doors to get involved with large marine companies, right? So you can see further down the press release here, the company is now in the process of submitting manufacturing proposals to Marine Max, HZO, Brunswick Corporation, BC, Mastercraft Boat Holdings, Inc., All American Marine, Vision Marine Technologies, BRP, Inc., stock ticker DOOO, Group Beneteau, Hans Yachts, AG, and Corvus Energy. Now, you may not have heard of some of these companies, but they are very large companies. I've brought up a few of their stocks here just to take a look at the type of companies that DDDX is going to be working with in the future. We have Marine Max, ticker HZO, is a $850 million market cap. We have Mastercraft Boat Holdings, MCFT, is a $500 million market cap. And then we have DOOO on the NASDAQ, which is BRP Inc., and they have an 8.8 billion market cap. Okay, so these are huge companies, and the ability for DDDX to get contracts with them would be massive. And if we hear a press release saying, oh, we've signed a contract with Marine Max, or we've signed a contract with Brunswick Corporation, or we're in a joint venture with any of these companies listed here, right? That's going to be a huge deal for the stock. It's going to be huge news, and traders are going to flock to this thing like crazy. So then let's take a look at some more press releases here from them. And we can see from another more recent press release from July 18th. So keep in mind, this company has been putting out a lot of press releases, doing a lot of communication, which is always a very positive sign for a penny stock especially. And so on July 18th, they talk about their continuing pursuit of aerospace partnerships. And so the main partnership they talk about in this press release is Boeing, and getting a Boeing contract, or seeing that press release in the future where they sign a contract with Boeing, can absolutely skyrocket this thing, in my opinion, obviously. But I'm a trader and I'm sharing my opinions, and to me this looks very appealing, right? Because the market loves a forward-looking catalyst. They love having something to look forward to. And so this is a really big deal. This is definitely something to look forward to. A company that's a penny stock, under $3 million market cap, doing work with the U.S. Navy and now Boeing. So what they've actually done is they've submitted a bid for Boeing Aerospace through its prime contractor. So, based on the fact that this is pretty much the only 3D printing company I can find that's doing work like this, right? That's getting in the door with the US Navy and getting in the door with Boeing and things like that, and working with all of these larger marine companies. And so the fact that they're pursuing all of this and the fact that they already have a resume to back it up and clients to back it up tells me there's actually a pretty strong chance that they will get a Boeing contract because they've been doing everything right and they've been locking in customers very well. So if we do see that Boeing press release in the future, again, that's something that could skyrocket this thing and really make it a fantastic investment as they keep growing this business. And so, this is a big PR, and this is the kind of PRs that you want to look out for from this company. And you can see they have included proposals to companies such as Lockheed Martin, Airbus, Northrop Grumman, and General Dynamics as well. And so all of these are big names that will absolutely attract volume and attract people in the market once they start securing these contracts. So they have a bid in for Boeing. Like I said, we're going to stay tuned on that and see if they can get Boeing. I do believe they will get Boeing, and as well as possibly, things like Lockheed Martin, Airbus, etc. And so it's very cool that not only do they have the U.S. Navy, but they're going into this aerospace sector as well. So this is like a future technology company that's pretty much at the ground floor, being under $3 million market cap, and it just makes it super cool. Now let's take a look at their dilution. So I've pulled up a dilution chart here from All Seeing Eye, which is a Telegram bot you can use to track dilution on on Telegram, right? So it'll give you the chart. You just type /till ticker name. It brings up the dilution chart for you. And so you can see past dilution, there was a little bit in 2021. There was a tiny bit in 2022. And for pretty much over a year now, there's been absolutely zero dilution, right? A couple restricted shares added, but that doesn't affect the float. That doesn't affect the shares we're trading. And so that's another thing that you need to look for with these penny stocks is look for dilution history, because sometimes dilution can really crush retail traders and retail investors and pretty much send their stocks to zero. So to me, it's always super valuable and also pretty rare when you find a company that's preserving its share structure like this. And so they've done a great job preserving their share structure. And not only are they not diluting, but as we're going to see now, they actually have been canceling shares. So in June, on June 1st, they announced a 5 million share cancellation. And so 5 million shares equates to 5% of the total outstanding shares, which is a large chunk of shares to be canceled. And so not only are they not diluting, but they're actually reducing the share structure and making the float even better. So really, they've done everything right. And I'm shocked that these guys have gone under the radar for so long. The more I look into this, the better it gets, right? Because now we're going to take a look at this. We have insider buys being disclosed via Form 4s. So June 15th, 10,000 shares disclosed through Form 4, insider purchase. And then on June 22nd, a 50,000 share insider purchase, right, at the price of 0.03, which the stock is actually less than 0.03 right now. So insiders clearly see the value in the stock and are just waiting for the market to discover it and find the value in the stock as well. And so when you have insiders purchasing shares like this and filing the Form 4s and disclosing everything, it really is a huge boost of confidence for the retail trader, retail investor, because it shows that the insiders and the people that are closely connected with the company strongly believe in this company and they're willing to invest in it. And so that's another great thing you want to look for as a retail trader. And you can see if we go through their list of press releases, they've been press releasing very consistently. And you can see as well, if we just go to their main page Twitter, they're always putting out news. They met with Congressman Rick Larsen. They recently strengthened their capital commitment to additive manufacturing and sold off some of their subtractive manufacturing that they didn't need, which is good management of the balance sheet and good pivoting by the company, right? So you can see from this Twitter that there's always news. They have a picture of their workshop here, which is very interesting. Here is a custom camper that came to them that requested custom parts to be made. So that's the neat thing about this 3D printing technology, is that you can really, it's super customizable. You can pretty much do whatever your client requests from you because it's so flexible and it's so customizable. And so this looks like a very highly scalable business. Follow them on Twitter. Their handle here is at 3DX Industries. You can follow them for updates there and also keep track of their press releases. But I'm going to be swinging this one because it looks like a great stock to me. Small float, moves quickly, companies doing everything right, constant communication. And I do believe that we'll hear more and more press releases from them in the near future as they're working on getting these contracts with Boeing and the marine companies, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely be keeping 3DX Industries on your radar. Stock ticker is DDDX. And we're going to move on to the next stock here, which is EMGE, which had a very nice move last week, 75% move from bottom. So bottom was 0.002. You can see now it's consolidating around 0.0028. And it hit a high last week of 0.0036. So that's actually slightly more than slightly more than a 75% move, which is already a fantastic trade. But I do believe there's more to the story here than just that one trade. If we look at the share structure here, we can see it's only 220 million held at DTC, which for a low dub stock, I mean, if you compare stocks of this price to EMGE, almost all of them, if not every single one, has a larger float than this. So this is a very attractive float for the price, which also means, right, the stock trades thinly. So the stock has big spreads, not a lot of shares on the ask. Very easy to push this stock up to a higher price because there's just not a lot of shares available for people to buy down here with such a low float at these prices. If you want to buy big size, it's going to push that price up, and that pretty much means it's a great trade because thinly traded stocks with high volatility, that's what OTC is all about. This is why people play penny stocks. Sure, there's high risk with penny stocks, but there's also very high reward. You can get, for example, like I said, a 75% move in a day. You can't really get that anywhere else except trading options. And so EMGE, what's new with them? Well, first, before I show you their Twitter and their announcements, the reason for the 75% move was this. So if you look at their SEC filings on the disclosure tab of OTC Markets, you will see they filed a Form 1Z. What is a Form 1Z? Well, we can see earlier on they filed a Form 1A, and this is a Regulation A offering, and this is how public companies will generally raise money in the OTC, and it means they're selling shares to they're selling shares to more professional investors, generally speaking, that are buying larger quantities of shares in exchange for funding the company, right? So what it does is when there is an active Reg A going on, it can suppress the price a bit because shares are being sold to these investors, right? And so there's shares going into the market, new shares being created, which will drop the price. And what happens is once the Reg A is closed, which is the 1Z filing, well, then a lot of the risk just fell off, right? Because now there's no more shares being created, there's no more dilution. And so it's pretty much free reign for traders to come back into this play and push the price back up. And this is a stock that has traded over a penny before, and then it was trading around 0.006, and it fell all the way down to 0.02, and it's really found its bottom. It's been hovering in that 0.02 range for a long time, and it moved very quickly back up once that 1Z was filed. So now you have to ask, okay, well, what's the next forward-looking catalyst for EMGE? And it actually is a NASDAQ IPO. So if we go on their Twitter at Corp Emergent and we scroll down a little bit, you can see their most recent string of tweets, which is from their president, Jim Morrison, who actually used to be the vice president of L'Oreal, which was obviously a huge company. So they have excellent management here. And if we look at this, it says, Jim Morrison says, since taking the helm of Emergent, I have enjoyed the process of creating the company's vibrant products and brands in the regenerative biologic space. The opportunity to coordinate between Emergent and Apollo and expand the value of these products and brands as president of Apollo BioWellness is an exciting opportunity and will bring expanded value to Emergent. I look forward to continuing to be involved in the dynamic offerings of Emergent going forward. And lastly, these last two are the big ones, right? Jim Morrison, former L'Oreal president and Emergent's full-time CEO, stated, Bowstead Securities is a world-class financial organization. They approach us to participate in a rolling up a series of regenerative biologics into a brand new IPO. And so what does that mean, right? So this means that some of Emergent Health Corp's subsidiaries or products, etc., are going to be rolled into this brand new IPO that's going to NASDAQ. And so that will give, likely what will happen, right, is usually this is how these deals play out, is you'll get some sort of dividend if you're an EMGE shareholder when they do the IPO spinoff to NASDAQ. So likely that will be playing out where they'll get dividends. Well, EMGE shareholders will be getting dividends, I would assume, right? That's not confirmed yet. But regardless, that's going to bring value to EMGE, the fact that they're going to be directly involved in this brand new IPO for NASDAQ. So that's a huge catalyst. As I showed you earlier in the video with BGLC, we know what happens to stocks when they uplist to NASDAQ from OTC. They do 1,000% runs. So obviously that's very attractive from a trader's perspective on EMGE, the fact that they could repeat that and do an 1,000% run possibly, which would be awesome. And so I'm here for it. I have some shares of EMGE. It's been a great swing trade off bottom so far, and I think it can go a lot further because, like I said, the float and the share structure is just excellent at these prices. So we're waiting. Basically, the next step is we're waiting to hear more from the company regarding the NASDAQ IPO, right? So these updates were May 24th. It's now July 23rd. So my guess is usually they're not quiet for this long, right? Usually they're pretty communicative. So my guess would be that they're in a small quiet period while they figure out this NASDAQ IPO. And I'm sure that once everything is concluded with this deal, they'll be announcing it, and it will, or in theory, it should attract quite a bit of volume and quite a bit of traders to the stock, producing a great trade. So that's EMGE. I see big potential there, and it's one of my current favorites. Next stock is GEGI, Genesis Electronics Groups. So if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I'm a huge fan of the stock. I've been in since triple zeros, and it's now 0044. Its high was like 0063, I think, since it started running. But this stock is still running. I mean, it's had dips, and it's had consolidation periods, but it's still attracting a lot of dollar volume, and it's pretty much like the fan favorite across social media for OTC right now. And so we're going to go over why. If we look at security details, which is the share structure, right, you can see it's 1.3 billion unrestricted. So this is a hefty float. This stock has quite a bit of shares, which means it's not going to move as thin, and it's not going to trade as thin. It's not going to move as fast as something like DDDX or EMGE. But that obviously doesn't mean it can't move, because it's done 600% since triple zeros already, and it's still, like I said, it's still going. So why is this stock such a big deal? Why has it been so popular? Well, if we look at their Twitter, they've had recent announcements, such as the fact that they attended the NREL Rail Decarbonization Workshop last week, which is a pretty big deal, gets you involved with big players in the field they're working in, which is obviously autonomous road-to-rail solutions. So they're building a autonomous vehicle, basically, that will carry shipping containers from the road onto the rail without having to change vehicles, right? It can do road and rail at the same time. So I've done tons of DD on this company and what actually they do, and all of the board members involved, and especially the CEO, Kevin Demoa, who's ex-SpaceX engineer, as well as several other EV companies. So go take a look at this DD thread on my Twitter, which is pinned at the top of my Twitter. And you can see it's a long thread. It has tons of due diligence on this company. Go take a look at all of this, and you'll find out all of the details of this company. I've talked about it a ton on Twitter, so I'm not going to talk about it a ton on this video because you can go refer to this to see all the details. But I did want to mention it in this video because they had this new press release on July 20th, which is Genesis Electronics Group's subsidiary GLID partners with Sensor Technologies Inc. to bring the new era of digital anti-theft technology to the shipment of cargo and freight. So this is their tech partnership that was outlined, or one of their tech partnerships that was outlined on the company's roadmap, which you can find on their Twitter here at Genesis Electro 4. So if you want to take a look at their roadmap, it's on their Twitter, and I've retweeted it out quite a few times as well at SuperRobotOTC. But this is their most recent tech partnership, and this is a near-field communication-powered, cloud-based, real-time data security digital cargo theft solutions from this company, Cargo Secure. And what this means is, since these are autonomous vehicles, they're going to need autonomous security. So this is going to be a fully autonomous security system for them to stop cargo theft. So that's just another great thing Gedgy has done recently, and as they say on their Twitter, after they followed that press release with this, which is Gedgy Technology Partners just warming up, more to come. So clearly they're excited about what they have to announce, and clearly they have quite a bit more to announce. So this is a company that I think is just going to continue to be a darling of the OTC because they have such impressive management and they're doing such cool things. This is and we take, to bring it back to DDDX, DDDX can become something like Gedgy because it's these future technology companies that really create amazing stories for investors in the OTC. Any company like this or DDDX that's working on future tech that's going to be a big deal in many industries for years to come, those are the companies you want to be paying attention to because these are the companies that are eventually going to grow and uplist to NASDAQ because they have such high growth potential just based on their product and on their service. So we are going to move on here to another really awesome stock. I've been swing trading this already, and I'm still holding shares here, which is WKSP, Worksport. So we've talked about BGLC uplisting to NASDAQ. We've talked about how DDDX and Gedgy have future technologies that could be future NASDAQ uplisters. And we've talked about EMGE, which is working on a NASDAQ IPO. Well, this is an example of the success you can have when you uplist out of OTC and grow your business on the NASDAQ. So Worksport is a company that used to trade on the OTC. And a year or two ago, they uplisted, I think it was like a year and a half ago, they uplisted to the NASDAQ out of OTC. And they've been just growing the business. Wasn't getting much attention for a long time, as you can see on NASDAQ. But then they finally started getting noticed in May, and the chart has just been climbing and climbing beautifully. And I've scanned so many charts on FinViz, and this is like one of the nicest charts you can find on FinViz, if you ask me. This is just a beautiful chart. It just broke new highs on Friday, and it's holding these highs, and the stock has been holding up phenomenally. And if you just watch it trade, there's very little selling pressure, and you can see that we're going to show why there's been such enormous interest in this stock recently, right? So first of all, 21.2% insider owned, okay, which is good chunk of shares and really shows confidence from management in their company. And it's only a 12.8 million float, so very small float, not a lot of shares, free trading, which makes it, again, very appealing. As you can see, gorgeous chart, kind of rode that 50 for a bit, and then big breakout. Okay, so let's talk about why that is. If we look at what the company's been doing, this is their website, this is their news section of the website. You can see they have tons and tons of press releases that have been coming out recently. So it really all started with this here in April 21st, 2022. This is when things got serious. Worksport enters into a formal agreement with Hyundai America, and they have continued this agreement with Hyundai America. And what this company actually does is they make covers for truck beds that are solar charging truck bed covers. And so while you're driving, your truck bed cover is charging a battery in your car that's saving you on gas. So you're essentially turning your truck a gas truck, you're essentially turning it into a hybrid, and you're cutting down on fuel usage a ton by doing this. And they're very visually appealing. Like you wouldn't even notice these really on your truck. They just look like a regular truck cover. And of course, they have excellent results, thus the Hyundai partnership, and they're now working with several other car manufacturing brands as well in 2023. And so what really mooned this stock the other day was July 13th, they announced their first big purchase order. So this was relatively pre-revenue company before this. They didn't have a ton of revenue coming in. It was mostly just them, building upon the tech and setting up their R&D facilities and setting up their manufacturing lines. Well, now they're actually selling lots of product. As you can see, they just received a massive purchase order, $720,000, one purchase order from July 13th. And as we know, since they're selling these products for a bunch of different manufacturers now, car manufacturers, I think this is just the beginning. I think there's going to be a lot more purchase orders coming in the near future. And, the chart shows that people are very excited about this and see the potential. I can't give price targets. This is all opinion. This isn't financial advice. But I can personally foresee this stock doing $5 or more, just because of how nicely it's been trading. It's not an official price target, guys. It's just, my opinion. I think this has like $5 plus written all over it just by how nicely it's been moving up. And so if we look at their most recent press release from July 20th, you can see they just finished their first assembly line in the United States. And so this was a $4 million assembly line they imported from Europe. They set it up in the United States. They've also built an R&D facility in the United States. And so you kind of got to put the pieces together here and think, okay, well, they have a Hyundai partnership. They just got a huge purchase order. They just opened an R&D facility. They just opened a manufacturing line, a big manufacturing line. And within this press release, it mentions an additional 4 manufacturing lines they plan on opening in the United States. So when you put these pieces together, you have to realize, and it's right here, with 4 more assembly lines on the horizon, Worksport's investment is in state-of-the-art manufacturing facilities. Okay, so you have to put the pieces together here and realize they're opening all these manufacturing lines because clearly there is a growing demand for their product. And so by putting those puzzle pieces together, we can determine, okay, this is probably the first of many purchase orders to come. So very exciting stock there. And lastly, but definitely not least, as promised from the beginning, we're going to be looking at the stock that is next in line to uplist from the OTC to the NASDAQ, and that's QIND, which is partially owned by ILUS, who has been an OTC darling for years now. One of the biggest runners we've ever seen in OTC was ILUS, and the company's still doing quite well to this day. And now they have this other company, QIND, under their belt, and this is the stock that they're going to be uplisting to NASDAQ. And we can see it's a very nice float, only a 20 million float, tiny float, which means there's very few shares available, which is great for us, because that means the price can skyrocket very quickly. And so BGLC, as we said, did 1,000% on that NASDAQ uplisting, and it had a very similar share structure to QIND. So I think, could QIND do 1,000%? Well, based on our context here, it's certainly not out of the question. I think this could see a huge run. Now, if we look at their Twitter, we can see on July 20th, they said 2021 full year re-audit complete to provide single audit opinion for S1 filing to speed up S1 effectiveness and uplist to NYSE American. Final round of S1 review is in progress. So the S1 is the filing that they will submit to officially uplist to NASDAQ. S1 has been reviewed by auditors and legal counsel, blah, 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 right? Investment bank is on board. Point is, the S1 filing is right around the corner. It could drop any day now. And when that drops, that means, boom, it's official. We're going to NASDAQ. And that's pretty much the biggest deal possible in OTC, right? Like that's every OTC's dream, every OTC company and every OTC investor's dream is to have their stock go to NASDAQ. And that's, I'm sorry, in this case, it's actually NYSE, New York Stock Exchange, but NYSE or NASDAQ, same would apply, right? That's their dream, is to go to either the NASDAQ or the NYSE and uplist out of the OTC. And so QIND is making dreams come true, and they're about to do the uplist. And as soon as that S1 filing hits, this thing could really go parabolic. And then lastly, on Friday, they came out and said ILUS plans emergency response and industrial subsidiary spinout and stock dividend for shareholders. And so what they talk about in this press release is that they're going to be doing a dividend for ILUS shareholders. So people that are owners of ILUS stock are going to get a special dividend of QIND on the NYSE. So that's really an attractive deal for both ILUS and QIND shareholders, and it should give both stocks a nice boost in this case. And we can see iGal, who puts out tons of great ILUS content on Twitter at igal_n. He says, look at the price action on BGLC going toward RS/uplist. I think we could see something similar with QIND, perhaps even more pronounced, as the ILUS subsidiary is in a hot sector, oil and gas manufacturing, and has much more impressive financials. I agree with this. I think this is an excellent analysis of what could happen with QIND, and I do own QIND shares because I see this as a very good opportunity for swing trade. I mean, it's very rare, and I mentioned this before, but it's very, very rare to see an OTC stock complete an uplist. And so when it does happen, these are the opportunities we have to take advantage of as traders and investors. So QIND, keep it on watch this week. Again, DDDX is a new swing trade I'll be getting into. I'm very interested in this one. Looks like it has fantastic potential. Companies doing all the right things. Keep eyes on them because they could announce a new Navy contract or a new Boeing contract or a new Lockheed Martin contract any day now. So this is something that's somewhat speculative, but I think it's pretty obvious what they're alluding to in their press releases here. And again, non-dilutive. So that pretty much wraps up the video. I think we've covered every stock I wanted to cover. It's a very exciting time for OTC with all of these OTC stocks going to NASDAQ and going to the NYSE. So I expect the OTC markets to get pretty hot in the near future with a lot of eyes on it. So I hope everyone enjoyed this first video from me, and I'll definitely be continuing with these videos. So thanks for watching, guys, and take it easy.